So our next video in course B01 Data Management is on data sharing, data governance, and collaboration. So data sharing is important for the BUSRC to make best use of its data. And there's a document there detailing that in detail, and that includes data arising from high volume, high throughput experiments. That, for example, could be omics or image or other related high volume data sets. We could have data ranging from long-term time series or cumulative approaches. For example, we have substantial biobanks of different pathogens that are useful for other people and that be accumulated long-term, and that would be important to be able to share in the appropriate manner. And there's other things that include here, including systems biology, for example, then models could be in there. So you think about what your data sharing plan is or should be. So we think about what are our best practices for data sharing. How do we do this? So, for example, if you're writing code for analysis, GitHub is good for that. We can use Lab Archives as a shared electronic lab notebook. We think about relevant database for us and their submission guidelines, their licensing approaches, how do they underpin open science, challenges in multi-collaborator data management, version control systems, and then also communication as well. So if you think about our data and formats and sizes, the documentation, quality, storage, sharing, ethics, responsibilities, we think about what data types align with these different components. How will we generated in terms of how will it be organized in terms of the conventions, naming conventions? How the quality of the data be checked that it's actually okay. Storage and also retrieval. What if someone's deleted accidentally? What happens then? Can it be retrieved easily? And how will it be stored in a manner that's accessible for others? Which links to sharing in primary databases. Ethics, for example, involved in of local partners in research that's overseas. And then also responsibilities long term. Who will manage the actual data sets? So all of these have to be considered in data management plans. And what can be effective for thinking about data management plans that kind of underpin collaboration is to consider data flow. For example, for the sequencing bioinformatics STP, we have our sequencing DNA extracted or RNA extracted at the start. We do library preparation to create libraries that are then sequenced using different machines depending on what our purpose is. Those create initially different files that are converted into files that are transferred onto the intermediate server. And that creates a FASTQ file then on our cluster where we have a 3-2-1 backup system. So we have things that are stored for immediately cluster and then also another mirror of that within the institute, and then also an immutable backup as well. Ideally, we want a cloud-based backup too, and that's something that's a work in progress. We can then also avail of external libraries, consider the 5 formats as we're going through this diagram, and then consider the analysis that we want to do. So that kind of gives an overview of the data flow in that area. And then if we're trying to find a data management plan around this, we would be firstly describe the data, describe the documentation using controlled vocabularies, consider data quality and standards in this area, consider data storage and backup, consider the long-term public accessibility, the ethical legal dimension, the responsibilities, and that leads us to the question of what's missing in them. And the struggle, and this links to what people do in the lab, is how this will be completed, how this will be monitored, the step will be checked that they're complete, how will the usage and accessibility of the published data be checked, and therefore it could be useful to have lab SOPs in considering how lab data is structured, managed, how tables are organized, and how to ensure you have human and machine readable formats. And going back to this simple question, why do so many people put spaces or non-alphabet symbols in their table of data? So that's a frustration of mine, as you're aware. So we can think about how we can consider this. So if you think about a project that you're working on, you can describe the data and documentation, describe what data apply in your area. There's different UKRI, ISO, GDPR considerations. Consider how quality is verified? How do you store the data here? And how is that backed up? And can you retrieve that backup? To which databases is that publicly accessible? What are the database guidelines, submission of raw data, process data, metadata, and quality measures? So that concludes this part on data sharing and collaboration.